The giant bubble that floated away. On July 24, 1967, a housewife in San Francisco was relaxing in her backyard with a glass of iced tea when she saw something floating in the sky. It looked like a giant silver disc about 30 meters wide and 15 meters high. She quickly dialed 911 and reported what she saw to the police. But they didn't believe her and thought that it was probably some kind of balloon. However, other witnesses started to call in from all over the city. They were seeing the same thing. But there is a catch. These balloons are usually filled with helium. In the early days, these balloons were made out of paper or fabric and were only used for special occasions like royal visits. Well, it depends on what they're filled with. However, we do know that it wasn't a balloon, because balloons don't typically float very far. They usually just end up on the ground somewhere. Therefore, we can rule out this explanation. If they're filled with helium, they'll float away into the upper atmosphere where they'll eventually burst and leave behind plastic waste. In the 1960s, it was common for companies to hire aircraft to fly around cities in order to advertise their products. This practice is still common today in places like India and China. It is possible that a company hired a plane to fly around San Francisco with a giant banner attached to it. The banner could have come loose or detached entirely and then floated away. This would explain why there were pieces of aluminum foil on people's lawns the next morning. However, if they're filled with air, they won't float very far. They'll just end up on the ground somewhere. However, there are many unidentified objects floating around up there in the sky, and most of them are probably just balloons or planes, but some could be something more mysterious. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on all of our latest content. We also encourage you to share this video with others who might be interested in this topic. Stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop exploring the unknown. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. If this was a banner that had come loose from a plane, then why didn't anyone see the plane itself? Don't believe everything you see on TV or read on the internet. Do your own research and form your own opinions. According to one witness, the object looked exactly like a flying saucer. The truth is that there are many unidentified objects floating around up there in the sky. We welcome your thoughts and opinions and encourage you to comment below with your thoughts on this intriguing case. Just remember to be respectful when engaging with other viewers. Most of them are probably just balloons or planes, but some could be something more mysterious. Flying saucers are typically described as being round and disc-like in shape. It's possible that this is simply a case of mistaken identity. The object may have looked like a flying saucer to the witness, but it was really something else entirely. We have tons of content available that you're sure to enjoy. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Surely people would have seen a plane flying around with a giant banner attached to it. The fact that no one saw a plane makes this explanation less likely. However, as technology improved, balloons became more widely used for advertising. In fact, one of the most famous examples of an advertising balloon is the Goodyear blimp, which has been a fixture at sporting events and parades since the 1920s. However, there is no evidence to support this claim. Plus, it's much more likely that UFO would just hover in one spot rather than float around. We have tons of videos about unexplained mysteries, paranormal activity, and everything else in between, so there's always something new to watch. We also have a podcast where we discuss all of these topics in greater detail. Also, if this was UFO, why didn't it land and why didn't it make any contact with anyone? All of these questions have left the UFO hypothesis unanswered. So after they've done their job, they float away into the upper atmosphere, where they eventually burst and leave behind plastic waste. However, drones weren't invented until the late 1960s, so this isn't a viable explanation. Another possibility is that it was a blimp. Blimps are essentially balloons that have been tethered to the ground. In order to keep them from floating away, it is possible that a blimp could have broken free of its moorings and started floating around the city. However, there is no evidence to support this claim. Not only is this bad for the environment, but it also means that the balloons don't actually go away. What had been mistaken for a balloon was huge, about the size of a house, and people could see it floating steadily across the city. What was this enormous object? The first description of the object came from Charles Hilliard. He said that it was a silvery disc-shaped object that looked almost exactly like a flying saucer. There were no windows or any other markings on it. It just floated there silently and majestically. To this day, there have been no plausible explanations offered as to what this object could be. A witness who spoke to the police said that he watched it float right over his home and then disappear behind a hill. Another witness said, "It looked like a large metal ball. It appeared to be about 20 stories up and then suddenly it turned sharply and floated away." Although the object did not touch down anywhere in the city, several residents reported finding small pieces of aluminum foil on their lawns the following morning. This led the police to conclude that it was most likely some kind of balloon, but we can't help but wonder if there is something more to this strange story. Balloons are often used for advertising, and some companies like to release them into the atmosphere to promote their brand. The first hot air balloon ever made was flown by the Montgolfier brothers in 1783. Since then, balloons have been used for all sorts of purposes, including advertising. But what happens when these balloons are released into the atmosphere? In the case of the giant bubble that floated away, we still don't know what it was. Could this mysterious object have been UFO? Some people believe that it could have been UFO because it was seen floating across the city. So what else could this mysterious object have been? One possibility is that it was a drone. Perhaps the most likely explanation is that it was some kind of stunt or publicity stunt gone wrong. However, there is one piece of the puzzle that doesn't quite fit. There is one other detail that is worth mentioning. In the end, we may never know what this giant bubble that floated away really was. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out our other content. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want to learn more about these types of mysteries, then be sure to check out our other videos. While the idea of UFO is exciting, it is important to remember that there is no evidence to support the claim that aliens exist or that they have ever visited Earth. The most important thing to take away from this video is to be critical of what you see and hear. As we wrap up this video, we want to thank you for watching and supporting our channel. We understand that this video may have brought up a lot of emotions for you, whether it be excitement, skepticism, or anything in between. Once again, thank you for watching. We hope that you enjoyed this video and learned something new.